Say the line.
What?
Say the line. Yell it.
Get away from her, you bitch!
And that was it took forever to make. It's just amazing. It's just it's so.
She's
great.
like, I did squats.
You want to walk over there?
What's
so how
up?
long did it take you to make that?
About 3 minutes.
Wow.
3
Yeah.
months.
It turned out awesome.
No, it did. I would like give up after like 3 minutes. I'd be like, I got an arm. I'm good.
I'm not committed enough. How well does it stay together? Do you have a problem?
Well, sometimes it falls apart and we gotta do a little patch and repair.
It looks pretty sturdy right now.
Where you
I know, I was
keep
about
your
to say,
tools.
it looks really
Oh,
good.
yeah.
And
This is where I put my.
Oh, there's compartments?
Wow. Is that me? Is that me or you?
I don't know who it is, but that's really awesome. I'm
Thank you.
blown away with how much detail you went into that. And that you can move around in it so, well, I don't know about easily, but pretty good.
Yeah,
Kind of hard.
I love it. This is really good. Thank you. Oh,
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. Good job. You're
Thank
my
you.
favorite of the show.
We have Alice and Tom as Power Loader and Colonial Marine from Aliens. Can you give us the best line from that scene?
Get away from her, you witch!
Well played. That's awesome. Thank you, Alice and Tom.
we won first place. Includes $200 cash and a digital copy of Avengers Infinity War. I still haven't even seen that yet. So awesome.
I'd like to apologize for my appearance. I'm not trying to look like a movie star. I'm having eye problems and I'm continuously streaming with tears. But I'm so terribly moved to meet you today.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm sorry. I'm really excited about this. So, first off, you guys are in one of the most, I feel, iconic movies and one of the most iconic trilogies. Or, I mean, it's more than a trilogy now, but iconic series of a movie. And one of my first things that came to my mind when I found out I was gonna interview you guys was, how was it being a part of a movie back then where the sets were so big and there wasn't a lot of CGI? I think that'd be some of the funnest thing behind it. So I wanted to know if you guys could kind of go into about the sets.
I found it so enhancing of the performance, because if you're in a place like the operations lab and you open a drawer, which no one's ever going to see, inside the drawer there are items that the colonists would have been using. They're made to look like space age daily items. It was that level of detail, and it just reinforced our sense of reality.
Well, I mean, I have nothing else to compare it to. No other movies or anything, but it was so amazing. And I think for me it helped. I really felt like I was a part of everything that was going on. You know, you really got into the part because everything was there and it was so realistic.
Yeah, I would agree. My 5 minutes, when we looked out the tractor, you could actually see what looked like a planet.
That is so cool.
And then they had the green walls up, obviously, but you could at least look out and see what looked like a, I don't know, planet Mars or something like that.
Yeah, I just like that's one of my favorite things about old movies was the sets were so detailed, and that was kind of something I wanted to ask of, being kind of caught up in all of that, and the sets are just insane, like how much of detail they went into it. So that was just one of my questions.
Well, I was lucky too because they would actually let me do more, like little things. So we were doing the scene at the end where I'm pulled across the floor.
Yeah.
And the harness that I had on, of course, they got the harness on me, and suddenly I said, I've got to go to the bathroom. So they had to take it off, and then they put it back on. But because that harness could be used for flying as well, on another set, they were actually doing some parts with the aliens, and they were having the aliens fly around. So they said, well, when we're done with this, you can go over to that set. And then the stunt people hooked me up, and I got to like fly around like super. So I got to do some really cool
Wait a minute,
things.
they didn't even let me do that on my stunt.
Sorry.
I would say, from the actor's point of view, it really makes life a lot easier. Someone walked up to me earlier today and said, I saw you in a film the other day, Sandman. I saw you in a film called Sandman. And to this day, I never saw the monster.
Oh, wow.
And that's the weirdest thing, So as an actor, you have to kind of try and create this whole idea of what the monster would be like, what it would be doing, and then later on they put the CGI on it. With Aliens, it was a lot easier because you didn't have to spend energy, creative energy, or any type of energy imagining a lot of these things because they use practicals, and so you could actually focus on being present and thinking about the character. I mean, when you work on a film, there are a lot of things that, some of you probably know this, there are a lot of things that you have to focus on. They may say, you're going to come here, you're going to stand right here, and at this point, you're going to turn towards here when you say this line. So you're focusing on that, but at the same time, you're trying to make the line sound like you would actually use that line, and you're just saying it, but you're focusing on being in light, you're focusing on your other actors, and then having to focus on something, create something in your mind of a monster or some CGI. It's a lot to ask, and it can affect your performance. Whereas this, they simplified it a lot for us because they didn't use that CGI. And I was talking to one of these guys here, I think, and I told him earlier, I said, I was just flipping through the channels a couple of years ago and I came across Aliens. It was halfway through the movie. And I thought, I'm going to look at a little of this and see how it holds up. And I was shocked how well it held up, but I think it held up specifically because it didn't use 1980s computer technology. They used real practicals, so everything looked real then, and it looked real now.
Yeah, it's so
The monster had his arms around me, in fact. So
And the queen.
that's real.
The queen was freaking huge.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Oh yes, yes,
I
I
mean,
saw
it was massive.
It was huge.
Because that was something I wanted to ask you was, as dressed up as the Marines, and I had heard or read that you guys were able to customize little details?
We were asked to and encouraged to because Jim was kind of obsessed with Vietnam at the time, and he had read a bunch of Vietnam books and seen films, and he said that in Vietnam the grunts did all this crazy stuff to their outfits, and so I think we sort of personalized it to our individual character as well. So I devised a logo for myself. I was the medical tech officer, and I was also like,
Very strong.
I didn't need any men. My heart had been broken. So over my heart, I had a red cross with a drop of blood coming off of it. And that became my tattoo as well. We all had individualized tattoos, which was fun.
Oh, wow.
In the days before everybody was getting tattooed regularly.
Did you want to add to it?
No, I personalized mine too. I wasn't very good at personalizing it. I thought, as a grunt, as someone who's going to war, you don't know if you're going to come back, and so what you cling to when you're out there, I would think, is those things that you love, those people you care about. So I just had a kid, and the mother of my kid, I put her name on my chest. But the problem was, The problem is I drew this heart, and you have to scratch it in because it's metal, right?
Yeah.
This isn't plastic stuff, it's real metal, so you have to scratch it in. And so I'm scratching this heart in, and then I start scratching her name in, and her name is Heather, and about halfway through I realized I don't have enough room.
Oh no.
So he was in love with Heath.
And you can't, yeah, so now I'm in love with Heath.
Oh, that was really good.
But it works for me because, you know, I get a lot of guys that think I'm gay and they love me.
That is super funny. Oh man. Oh, Christopher, I wanted to ask you, how upset were you in the original movie? How they cut your scene from it?
As any 12-year-old, I mean, I was pretty crushed, but you know, lucky for me, Carrie was still in the movie.
Yeah.
So I was able to enjoy all the perks of being in the movie. You know, we got to go see the premiere and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was pretty gut-wrenching.
Yeah, seeing you in the director's cut, which was awesome, you know, finally for you to get back in it. But I mean, for the original movie and how big it was, you're like, come on, you know, like.
Well, and the scenes that they cut out were very personal to Newt and Ripley because it really explained our stories. And it explained why she and I had the bond that we had because she lost her daughter, I lost my family. But it was also personal to both of us because for me, obviously, my actual brother was cut out of it. And then there's the scene where she has a picture, and it was of her daughter.
Yeah.
Which is actually, that picture was her mother. So for both of us, it was like, well, it was very personal as a character, but also personal for us as well.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about that. I knew, you know, that they cut all that out, which actually really is captivating and really brings you into the whole kind of storyline of it, which is surprising that it got cut. But there are so many action scenes in that movie that are...
It was just way too long. They had to
Yeah.
cut something, unfortunately.
Which now movies, the longer the better, it
Yeah.
seems like, you know, so...
When I heard they were doing a director's cut, I got all excited because I thought maybe they'll put my cut scenes back in. Because when I discovered the cocooned woman, it was an entire day of shooting with just her and me. And Jim directed me to, you know, just spontaneously, he came up with an idea. He said, try to break her out of the cocoon. Well, speaking of real sets, her cocoon was fiberglass. And I broke it, you know, kind of cutting myself up. And then he said, let's go again. And the art department went, ah! You know, like they're trying to glue it back together so we could shoot it again.
Well,
and there was all this stuff about me, you know, shooting with the flamethrower and all this coverage, like close-ups. And, oh man, it's my first movie, I'm getting all this coverage. And then I go in for looping, and it's cut, it's over my shoulder, my back. I'm lifting her head up. She says, please God, kill me. They hand me the flamethrower, or I had it already. I shoot her with the flamethrower, and it cuts, quick cut to close-up of Sigourney, and she's going, no, 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 and I'm saying my lines over the top of that with no visual.
But see, they learned from that cocoon scene for my cocoon scene. My cocoon scene lasted a long, well, it felt like months, so I'm sure it was just like a week or whatever. But they learned that they couldn't break it once, and more than once. And so they said, so they actually had this smallish hole, and I'd have to climb through it, and then I'd have to sit, so the fiberglass was going over like a stool, a round wooden stool, and I would have to sit like this, the way however it was that I was sitting with like a leg up, but I couldn't actually rest my foot on the cocoon because they were worried I'd break it. And so I had to sit like this, and I remember a little tiny piece was by my hand, and I moved, and it was like, you know, I mean, like this big, and it broke off, and I was terrified that James Cameron would notice that I had broken it off, you know. Yeah. But I would do that, and then I felt like I was in there forever, and then I'd have to climb out, and then they'd give me a break, you know, and then I'd climb back in. But we only could do that scene once, and Sigourney's hands were all bloody and torn up and everything from it.
Oh, wow.
It's nasty stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty...
Yeah, where now, you know, they wouldn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
Nice. How did you guys, well, you didn't get to see the first film, but being a part, did you guys see the first film before you were working on the movie?
I'm trying to remember whether I did or not. I think we've talked about this on our booth when some of you have come to talk to us, but you know, the assumption is that we must be crazy, wild sci-fi fans and see all the sci-fi movies, and we actually don't.
I hadn't
Sorry.
Seen it. I hadn't seen it, and it wasn't until I think I had met with James a couple of times, and he offered me the role that I went back and looked at it. I didn't want to see it at first because I thought if I see it, it may affect my performance.
Wow.
In a way, and I want this. This is a new script. This is a new character. I want to bring him. I want to create him myself. But then I thought I think I should see this movie, and I saw it at home by myself. It scared the shit out of me. I mean, that first movie was scary as heck. Are there kids in the audience? I'm gonna watch my mouth. It scared the heck out of me, but I think it has. I was talking to one of somebody at my desk earlier. I think having made the movie, it has made me more of a sci-fi fan than I ever was before, though.
And Jim had a screening for us, a private screening of Terminator, because he had made the Terminator to convince, he was a very young director at the time, he was barely 30, he had to convince 20th Century Fox to allow him to make the sequel to The Alien. So he screened Terminator for us. And,
oh, wow.
And I hate scary movies. I'm under my coat when it gets scary. So he was sitting right behind me. And I'm thinking, I can't put my coat over my head with the director of the movie behind me. And I had to like shut my eyes and like try not to flinch when it got scary.
They actually wanted us to watch Alien before we started filming because I think they wanted us to have like an idea. We had no clue. I mean,
Yeah.
we had no clue what we were getting into. You know, my dad's military. We're just kind of regular,
Well, you guys
everyday
were so
people.
young.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
watched that 9/11, and we weren't scared.
Yeah, we weren't scared. I laughed and thought it was funny. However, I don't like scary movies.
Right.
Like I'm a romantic comedy kind of person. I like to laugh. I like to smile. I don't like to be like screaming. But yeah, no, they had us watch that. I admit, I think that's the only time I've ever seen the first one.
Oh, wow.
But like in the movie, James was always trying to scare me, and I'd be like, dude, you're having me look at a chicken and you threw it at me. Big deal. You know, it was like a rubber chicken or do various things. And then when we went to go watch Aliens, there was a part I hadn't seen most of it I saw being filmed, like even the cocoon scene, they let me go over there and watch it so that I could see how everything was done. And it was a really amazing experience. And so there was a scene at the beginning when the Marines first come in before you see me, and there's like the big containers and they have the face huggers in it, and one jumps like that, I think, to Paul, and I went, and I jumped backwards, and I didn't know that James Cameron was sitting behind me, and then he tapped me on the shoulders, and I screamed again, and he's like, I got you twice. He was so excited.
Because that's what I was going to ask, if they did hide the monsters from you to kind of make it more scary, but I guess not.
No.
Because I've heard some movies will do
I have
that.
seen some, yeah.
Yeah, where they kind of try to keep the monsters away so you get that initial kind of like frightened kind of, I don't know.
We would be on set, and they wouldn't hide them from us, but we didn't hang with them.
Right.
That's
We
good.
hung with us, and they would hang with the aliens would hang together, and they were a mixture of I guess
A lot of stuntmen.
stunt guys, dancers, because sometimes they had to do things that normal people's bodies couldn't do when they were crawling through the shafts, I guess. But I remember watching them because they were kind of in that area, and I was watching them, they're talking, and one guy had his head off, and he had a cigarette in his hand. It was the coolest picture, the coolest photograph, and I wish I had taken a photograph of that. because
Only
it
if we had
was
iPhones back then.
And they didn't have iPhones too, so.
Right.
But yeah, we didn't kick it with them that much.
Yeah, that's what I wondered, because it, you know, especially, you know, you guys being so young, if them, like, oh, want to, you know, because I feel like sometimes it might be harder for a child actor to, I don't know, pull from. I don't know.
Well, I mean, when they filmed the scene with my dad with the face hugger, I
Yeah.
don't remember having any kind of warning what was going to really happen. So that one was kind of a real, like,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
initial reaction.
yeah,
I like that.
Well, like for me, Stan Winston was amazing. He would always make sure I got to see everything. So like in the med lab, when they all come in and save me after Paul Reiser tried to kill us, he showed me how the face huggers work. So they were basically like remote controls. And so they would let me look at all that kind of stuff, and he would show me. And it was interesting because on the set, I think everyone kind of, like the Marines kind of hung together. Sigourney was usually kind of by herself, but like, hanging with everybody, but kind of she was off to herself. Lance was kind of off to.
Yeah, he was off to
Yeah,
himself.
I was kind of I floated between everyone. I was always, and I had a table set up, and I would have like clay there, and right before Christmas I made a massive paper chain, and so people would come and sit next to me. Like Bill Paxton actually used to come over all the time and make things with me. He used to come over and do stuff with everyone. They would kind of migrate around, but for the most part I think everyone kind of stuck with their little, and I think that's what kind of made it more realistic, is because the Marines were so solidly a group together.
It was weird having a kid on a set like that, though, because
Weird, but amazing.
and she was the person that was kind of like interwoven between everybody else.
Yeah.
But because the film was kind of dark, and when you're filming it, there's a lot of atmospheric smoke, so it's dark. You're sweaty. You got the outfit on. You got the armor on. You're in these areas that are meant to feel kind of claustrophobic. And then you got a little girl walking around,
Yeah.
and she's all happy and everything. But you were a different kind of child too, though, and I think that's why he cast her, because she still is. She was a different kind of child, because I think I just saw you as very curious.
And very
curious.
self-possessed. I mean, nothing threw you off.
Preoccupied and busy with doing her own thing.
Yeah.
And it was just fascinating because we would be talking about whatever, and she would just be like from any group she can walk into and doing her own thing. And it was really a different kind of experience to have her on set.
Did you guys have to go through any training before the movie?
A lot of training. First of all, Jim wanted us to look like this honed fighting force of the future, where we've all got to be like, like the muscles just bulging off of us. And Mark Rolston and myself were actually forced to go to Pinewood Studios 5 days a week for weeks before we started shooting, and physically train with this huge Yorkshireman stuntman. And the first day I spent at the gym just training with this guy, I got home the next day. I woke up the next day and I'm sitting, everything hurt, and I'm sitting in my breakfast table with my roommates, and I said, I can't go back there. I can't go back. I said, shut up, think of the money, and get back there. But beyond that, when we all got together and started the table reads, we had, I don't want to say full military training, that's very insulting to the military, but we had a former SAS officer from the British Royal Army, and we had a former sergeant from the US Army as cast members, and they trained us like a quasi boot camp. And we had to do drills, we had to be on point and take what would you call it, a location. We had full weapons training. Every single one of us used every single one of the weapons, with the exception of the smart guns. So we all trained with pistol, flamethrower, and pulse rifle. We had to run, fall on our stomachs, and fire. If you're ever caught with your weapon pointed at another human being, just like boot camp, you have to drop to the ground and do 10 push-ups. And my man Ricco was often caught, and he would show everybody up by doing one-armed push-ups.
Yeah.
And I
don't know
can't
what she's
do
talking
one
about.
solitary push-up, so I made sure my weapon was secured at all times.
I was about to say, can you still do a one-arm push-up?
I bet.
I could.
You should see him.
No, I was showing off, though. I was just showing off.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that kind of plays into the whole movie.
Oh,
It is.
yeah.
I mean,
Character,
Marines
who you
Marines
were.
are cocky guys. That's
Yeah.
part of why they're so good. They believe they can do things that other people can't do.
Yeah, and it sounds like, having that, it really showed through the movie, because that's how I felt like you guys were attached at each other's hips, and you guys were so close, and it really bled through into the movie, and it was really fun. So it's,
I think James did figure it out. He called us in, and a couple weeks before we ever started shooting, and we had this little boot camp thing. Not real boot camp, but for actors boot camp. But it was very effective for two reasons. One, it got us into the right frame of mind. It also got started getting our bodies into shape. The scene that you see when we come out of the hyperspace, that scene, even though it's closer in the movie, in the actual filming of it, it was later during the filming. And by that time, we were we had been working out for months. And so when we come out, we look really good. But that's not the way we started. That's after being on the film for a couple of months and working out all the time. But that 2 weeks before we started shooting, it taught us a lot of things like the hand signals. It taught us what soldiers have to learn to protect themselves, how to take over a spot that you have to take over. It taught us the personalities of each particular actor, and you knew who you could razz and give shit to, and you knew who you didn't say as much to. You knew if you said something to somebody else, certain actors will come back with something that's even better than what you said.
Oh, wow.
And all of that stuff came into play during that scene at the breakfast scene when we're all sitting around the table.
Yeah.
Because we had the lines, but we also had the luxury of ad-libbing. If you guys don't know what that means, just making up stuff. If you get inspired to say something, you say it. And if it works, James let you say it and keep it in the movie. If it didn't work, it was cut. Or he'd say, don't say that line. And so we're there working and we're eating and we're talking the lines, and every now and then somebody would throw something in that's not in the script. And if it was something that if you had a comeback, then you would do the comeback. And so I think it gave us a confidence because we knew these people during those 2 weeks before the filming started to actually be able to just razz people up and do what friends do, you know? Friends give each other a hard time sometimes.
I love it.
At the expense of their friend.
I'm used to that. My co-host
Exactly.
give me a lot of crap.
When I said the line, something to Bill, I remember that time we had that Arturian Poontang, and then Mark goes, yeah, but yours was a man, and then I go back to him, yeah, it don't matter when it's the Arturian, baby. All that shit was just ad-lib, man. We're just doing it, just.
Because that's what I was wondering, with the movie being so, kind of scary, is if it was kind of lighthearted, you guys had any funny moments in the movie, behind the scenes, if you guys had anything to share that was really fun during the movie, that you guys were messing around or doing?
Well, we were always messing around.
Well, that one scene with the knife,
yeah.
That
was really scary, but they were really doing it, and they missed a couple times.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always wondered that. So that was real.
Well, they sped it up some, but
He actually had to go slower because he went so fast.
They actually were doing it, and it was a real knife. It had
and Lance had to practice with a whole bunch of different knives because he wasn't sure what James wanted him to use, what kind. So he practiced, and he had 6 or 7 knives. And then he came to England because he was living in America, and it was filmed in England. And he arrived, and customs wouldn't let him through because he's coming through with all these knives. James Cameron actually had to go down to the airport and basically bail him out of there because he's like, no, this is for a movie, and had to explain everything.
Right, buddy. Come this way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I always wonder if it was a fake hand. That's what I always thought.
No, it was
a
pretty
real
amazing.
hand. But I mean, thank goodness that Lance is the type of actor that he really he pays attention to detail, and so he was practicing all the time. Even before the scene was shot, you would catch him practicing, just trying to get that thing going. So when we actually did it, he was good at it.
Well, that scene is really captivating. Just seeing the emotion and just how fast it's going. You're I always kind of not turn the other way, but kind of look a different way.
And he's a real method guy too, Lance. So he did keep himself separate from us. I'm sure he would have loved to join in with us in our dinner parties and fun stuff we were doing, but he kept himself separate because as an android, he was separate. And I think he used to occasionally sort of wait on us a little bit, hey, can I get you another cup of coffee?
Wow.
And it wasn't until years later meeting him at the cons that I realized he's a kick-ass guy, really funny, really fun and friendly. But I thought he was kind of standoffish because he would never hang and talk with us at the time.
See, and I saw towards the end, Sigourney and I used to joke that we were the orphan children that nobody wanted because everyone, sorry to say, but everyone was dying off, and we're there, and so it was our friends, there's another one gone. Oh, there's another one gone. It's kind of and so at the end it was mainly just she and I, but Michael was there for part of it, but then he eventually left because we had just scenes between the two of us, and Lance was there, so I got to know him pretty well because for a while there it was just the 4 of us, and it was kind of lonely.
Going from this big cast and then just shrinking and
Yeah, well, like I
Yeah.
said, they all like kind of doted on me. So, you know.
She was our mascot.
I know.
How was it working with Sigourney? Like,
She's amazing. I mean, she is amazing. I mean, I was talking to Rico's wife once, and I was like, "Oh, Rico's one of my favorites," and she's like, "Who are we kidding? We all know Sigourney's your favorite." I was like, "Okay, well, yes," but I mean, she is just. She's one of the most genuine people I know, and like the relationship between us is very real. Like I can't even. Someone asked me once to describe our relationship, and I was like, I don't know even how to describe it. And I think I was at a convention with her, and she's like, I'm the same way. I don't know how to describe the relationship between us. Like we're just very close, and I cannot see her for years, and then suddenly, and it's just you kind of pick up one of those relationships. You just pick up where you left off.
nice.
For me, Sigourney, I hated working with her. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like, really? I was like, juicy details.
I'm like, man, I never heard that.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hated working with her. I never want to work with that woman again. Oh God.
I'll let her know.
Sigourney. Jesus. No, Sigourney is kind of like I think she's a perfect role model of what the lead actor should be like on
Yes.
set. There was an incident that happened in London when we were making the film. There were producers. This was with the crew. Producers were having problems with some of the crew. We're in England. They like to take tea breaks, and we're from Hollywood, man. If we're almost there, we want to finish that scene. And
Can I just say something though? I loved the tea breaks
Oh, me too.
because the tea lady and I were friends, and so she would let me pick what pastry I wanted, and then I got to help serve everybody. So I got my own pastry, and I got to help serve everybody. So I loved the tea breaks.
But it's mandated by union law, so you have to break at XXX on the clock. On the clock.
And so
They'll
for
stop a shot.
a producer or a director, or even for some of the actors, myself, I'm a bit of a method actor myself too. If I feel like we have got this thing cooking right now, I don't want to turn it off.
Yeah.
You want to
Break
keep
for
going.
15 minutes
Right.
and then try and get it going again. It's too much hard work, and we would have to, by law, stop. And
Wow.
so there were real problems with that, and some people were getting fired, and some people were getting towed off, and at some point, the crew started feeling bad about it. It wasn't a good feeling, and Sigourney heard about this, and Sigourney spoke up on their behalf and made some big changes for the crew, not for the people in front of the cast, for the people, not for the people in front of the camera, but for the people behind the camera, and it changed everything. As a matter of fact, some people that had got fired were rehired.
Yep.
And
Wow.
what happened was that crew then came to that set every day working their butt off, partly because it's their job, but partly because I think they felt that she spoke up for them, she cared about them, and the project now was all of our project. And she was the only person that could do that because
Yeah.
she was the lead. And I had a lot of respect for her for stepping out, because she could easily be like these stars who like, that's you guys' problem, I don't need to know anything about it.
Yeah.
But she got involved, she did the right thing, some people got rehired, that crew worked their butt off for that film after that.
Wow.
And I think it shows on screen because of it. too.
Definitely.
And it all goes to her as a person, her character. You know?
But I think it was also after the movie too, because when she found out that my brother was going to be cut from the part, she personally called to tell him, to let him know that. When she found out that there was a bunch of different scripts that they were like basically choosing from for Alien 3. When she found out that they were going with one that I died in, she called to let me know that they weren't going ahead with that. So I knew beforehand. She made sure I got an invite to the premiere, which was really nice at 16 to be
Yeah.
able to go to a premiere. I was like, oh, I know that. At 10, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just on the set. She was always looking out for all of us and everybody. And I think she realized her position and didn't abuse it, but knew kind of and what she needed to do to kind of take care of her people, And,
Yeah. If I can piggyback onto that, we went to see the screening. After the screening, we had a little after party at Sigourney, at the hotel Sigourney was staying at. And we're at the hotel in Beverly Hills, and I'm over here, and my girlfriend at the time was in London, and I was feeling kind of sad that she wasn't a part of this. And Sigourney says, well, why don't you call her up? Now, this is when telephone calls from the States to London was like crazy expensive. And I says, no, it's okay. She goes, listen, took my hand, put me inside of a room that was quiet. Call her up. Don't worry about it. 20th Century Fox is paying for it.
Our party ended up, because 20th Century Fox didn't want to throw an after party for us, so she's like, everybody come back to my place. It's all in 20th Century Fox, because they were footing her bill.
Right.
I mean, I remember her popping open the champagne and like, thanks 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
You know, we were all like, yeah.
So she was.
I did not drink the champagne, I should add. I just remember that.
No, so I take my hat off to Sigourney because Sigourney is a good role model, and for a young actor, you know, I thought that was a good experience to have because some people in positions of power don't use their power, and some people abuse their power. But I thought she had the right balance.
And she was the height of professionalism. She'd be on set, on time, fully prepared, notes in the margins of her script, you know, ready, like emotionally prepared to go to work immediately.
And that script, that movie was a vehicle, a breakout vehicle for her. She had done the first Aliens, but that movie was her movie. And also, the other thing I like about that movie is that movie had so many different kind of firsts. Like it was the first time that you had seen women that strong. It was the first female action hero. It was the first time you saw a woman like Jeanette's character, Vasquez, who could stand up to the biggest of the guys, you know. And the diversity of the film too. We talk about diversity a lot nowadays. That film was ahead of the game. If you look at the film, everybody, everybody, and then you have a child in there, and even that child is a female, but she is the sole survivor on the planet. Everybody else, she managed to be the survivor.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just really groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
I love that you say that because Sigourney was like the first like woman kind of like action hero, like you said.
She like started the girl power movement, really, you know.
And she was just this huge, iconic like character, and to now hear the other side of what you guys are saying about her just makes it that much more captivating of hearing if she did care about everybody else and being on time. She could have been like, I'm the star of this show and kind of left everybody behind, and that's...
Yeah, and if you look at that movie, you learn that if you look at every woman, every female in that movie, they're strong characters.
Oh, yeah.
Every female. But the thing is that because they're strong, the guys are strong too. It doesn't take away from them. You know, we were a team.
Except for Hudson.
So it was exactly. So it was just I thought it was groundbreaking in a lot of ways back then.
Yeah, no, I definitely second that. That is a really interesting kind of behind the scenes of how you guys feel about it. Because I was going to ask, besides your guys' own scene, is there a favorite scene in the movie that you guys really kind of like gravitate towards?
Mine was the breakfast scene. And when we get out of the hyperspace and we all eat together, because that was one of the few scenes where everybody's together. But also, I think I like that scene because you didn't see the warriors. You saw the people, the humans, and that was also a time when we were able to, like I said, riff and just play with some lines, throw some stuff out there. And James just kept the camera rolling, and you guys go for it, you know. And what worked, you saw in the film. What didn't work, got cut out. You know, that line when I come out of Piper's sleep and I go, I hate this job. That was never in the script, but you know, he gave us the feeling that, you know, if you are inspired, go for it, you know.
Because I love the scene where you guys are coming down in the transport.
Oh yes.
The drop ship.
That's my favorite scene in the movie. It's just, I don't know, I can't really explain it. It's just a really good scene, and like I really feel like you get a grasp of the characters just because you're like, I don't know, you guys are getting ready, you don't really know what's going to happen, and everybody's kind of on edge a little bit. I don't know, you can really feel the emotion in that scene.
When Hicks goes to sleep, he's that cool.
Yeah.
It's like, no big deal.
Oh, he was hilarious.
I got to tell you something about that speech that Bill Pax does. Doing that. Now, Bill was one of those actors that really did his homework, and there was a certain kind of insecurity in his characters that he played, but there was a certain kind of insecurity in the actor as well. So I would see him working on his lines, working on what he was going to do. And I remember seeing him, I'm thinking, because the speech was written on paper that he was such a badass. But when I was reading it, when he was doing it, I just thought, he doesn't really come across as the badass to me. I don't believe him. But I didn't know what James had in mind. James had in mind that he wants to be a badass. He's not really a badass, but he really wants to be a badass. Mm-hmm. And then there comes the humor. There comes the comedy of it all. But then when crunch time came and he ends up dying, you see that he actually found that badass in him.
Yeah, that was...
And so I got to give credit to Bill Paxton for persisting and just trying to make that work, but I also got to give credit to the editor for editing it the right way, for James for seeing that I'm gonna edit it in a way that this is all gonna work out in the end, even though it may seem like it's not working now. When we put it all together, and that's the magic of movies. You know, actors get a lot of credit for movies, but it is really a team sport. I mean, if it wasn't for the sound, the lighting, all those people behind the scenes, that magic wouldn't happen. The writer can write one thing, but when he writes it, he hands it over, his vision over to a director. The director has his vision, he hands it over to the actors. Each actor has their vision of it. So it really is a team. And then the wardrobe person comes in and they have their input. It's a team effort, and a lot of times we get, I think, more credit than we deserve. Well, she does especially, but the rest of us.
The involvement of his character in the end was really awesome, but everybody's character, just kind of seeing you guys kind of all evolve in that movie is kind of really amazing. So. Now, with how big this movie is and everything like that, seeing people dress up as, you know, and seeing the fans and how involved they get, I mean, you guys can see. How does that affect you guys?
Ripley.
How's it hanging?
Deuces.
Well, when we did the London Comic Con 10 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
That was our first convention, me and Carrie, and I don't think we had any idea what to expect. I know we didn't have any idea because, you know, we had people coming in costumes, and you know, my part was cut from the original movie, and they still knew who I was. And it's amazing still 32 years later that it has the impact that it still does.
Well, kind of piggybacking off of that, for me, I mean, we were living in England. My dad was in the Air Force, and then we moved here, and I tried out for a few roles, and I was offered some in that, but I really I wanted to be a normal kid. And then I quickly discovered, well, as some people would say, I'm not normal, but that there was something different about me. But you know, I moved here, I was in 5th grade, so I had an accent from living in England most of my life. And I had, you know, like the big red cross on you because you're so different. And guys don't get it as much as girls, but girls can just be mean. Like, and anything that makes you any different than anybody else, they like hone in on that. So for me, I had a kind of a hard time, and I really kind of blocked it out. And plus that's not me. Like, I am who I am. Yeah, that's a really cool part of my life, but it doesn't consume who I am. Like a friend of mine in college, they did a Where Are They Now article in Entertainment Weekly our senior year. I hadn't told her at all about aliens. Like, it just never came up in conversation. And she's like, I can't believe you didn't tell me this important. And I'm like, what do I do? Hi, I'm Carrie Henn. I was in Aliens, you know? But we really had no concept because we don't live in LA. I'm not a part of that whole thing. Yeah. I'm a school teacher. And I got an email sent to my district office just saying that they were interested in doing a comic convention. A sci-fi convention in London, and would my brother and I be interested? And I'm like, you know, my family still lives there, so I'm like, a free ticket to England? Heck yeah, I'll be all over that. Yeah. And you're gonna pay me? Score! Yeah. Nobody's gonna come see me, but okay. So we went, and I think my brother and I were just like, oh my gosh, people are that was, I think, the first time, and that was maybe 10 years ago, that I realized how big it was, because I just had kind of blocked it out. But it is always amazing to me and surreal that it has continued, and this thing that I had a small part in is so big, and the things people come and tell me, you know, I watched this before I was deployed. You know, our whole unit got together and we watched it. Or, you know, you meant so much to me. I was a child. My parents were going through a divorce when I watched it, and I saw how strong you were, and you made it through, and it helped me get. You hear all these stories about how much what you did impacted someone, you know, and it's really quite amazing. I mean, to me, and it's surreal. It's kind of just hard to believe that it's still so big, and so with all these other movies coming out, and that it holds.
It's still,
Yeah. We all love that you all show it to your children and everything like that, because it keeps it going and we get to see each other and have fun, but it really is amazing to watch.
It's humbling, you know, the amount of time that people spend making costumes and getting together and meeting with each other. In England, they have huge groups of people that spend all their spare time doing aliens things. And it's just mind-boggling.
The first con I came to, I thought, I am never going to one of those things again. It was so tiring for me. I was really tiring, and I didn't get it. You know, I didn't get it. Because people will come and look at you and stare at you and then ask you questions about a film that you really don't remember that much about. And it was just, I found it very tiring. And then I would see people dressed like Ripley over there or that guy, and I didn't get it. And then after doing a few of them, I realized that everybody has their own passion. My passion may be going to a movie or playing basketball. Some people, they look forward to this, and you could see it. And then I started talking to them and realizing that a lot of these people, even though they look weird to me because they have costumes on and all that, they're just having a great time. They're doing what they enjoy doing, and it kind of changed me, because I was never into sci-fi. I'm an actor, and I was also a Shakespearean actor, and you know, I was always looking at it from an artistic point of view, and now I can appreciate the art that's in sci-fi because of you guys.
Wow, that's really nice.
This question's for Ricco. Was that ad-lib when you said that remark about the, I guess she doesn't like the cornbread either?
No, the cornbread line was actually in there. It was in there.
How about the corn cob? How about that?
What did she say?
How about the corn cob?
Yes. That line was not an ad lib. No, that was James Cameron.
Hi, Carrie. I wanted to ask, you ever look back and ask yourself, like, hey, maybe I could have, you know, done other acting roles, but of course not a lot of directors in the business like to, you know, work with kids, and only a few of them like put the effort, but some just don't like working with kids.
I mean, I sure, you know, at some points you do think, oh, what would have happened, you know, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, I love my life. I'm happy just being me. Had I done that, I probably would never have met my husband or have my children, and who knows where my family would be. And I think we're pretty down to earth, normal as can be, individuals. And, you know, I mean, I think everybody always thinks what if, but it's really not worth staying in that spot, because as long as you're happy and healthy, that's really all that matters.
You know, it's really weird, speaking of you being a child actress, because her daughter is like the spitting image of her when she was that age. And so every time I see her daughter, it takes me back. It's like a time warp or some crazy stuff, and she knows it too. Look at her over there. Oh, I'm not going to point her out. No, I will never point her out.
So this question's maybe for Ricco, but it goes for pretty much everybody. So considering Aliens being one of the early Stan Winston films, or one of the films that he's associated with, being the legend that he is, and I guess, like I said, anybody can answer this. We all know Stan Winston is huge, and how amazing his stuff is, and we just got revisited with all the Jurassic World stuff that just came out, and how he was a part of that and helped them with the CGI and building stuff. Is there a discernible difference that you notice working with somebody that would be considered maybe a master like that versus some of the other, not to put down the other movies you did or anything like the people that did those, but is there a discernible difference for you guys as actors working with somebody like that?
I would say this about Stan. What I remember most about him, for someone who is as talented as he is, was that he was so normal. You know, he's a normal guy, and maybe if he was in a room full of people, you wouldn't even notice him. But yet he was crazy, crazy talented. What is it with you guys flies up here? I mean,
Yeah,
they're
a
like,
lot of flies.
you guys flies are like, they're serious. They're on some, I don't know, steroids or something. But no, that's the thing I would say about Stan, is that I just remember him just being just a regular guy, and also excited about what he does. And I often think that people who do something like that for a long time, how do you continue to be excited about it? And he seemed to still be, he was still excited about what he was doing, creating this new stuff. And that's what I think of when I think of him.
Hi guys.
Hi.
It's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think you guys are freaking amazing. I enjoyed the film. Probably the 100 times that I've seen it, every single one of those times was absolutely awesome. And I just relive it every single time I get to see it again, play on on my TV. I just wanted to say thank you. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And I'd like to say to you guys, you know, like I said, I've done over 50 movies. You guys keep this movie alive. You guys keep this movie present. You guys keep introducing it to new generations, and it is because of you that this film, 32 years later, is still a conversation piece.
Any other audience questions? All right, I'll come around to you.
I probably won't express myself the way I want to, but I saw Aliens when I was in college, and I was with a group of women, and it was the very first time we saw a movie where it was, as you mentioned, Ricco, all strong women. And I came home and literally our lives were changed because we saw Sigourney not afraid to be maternal, and that was where her strength came from.
Yes.
We saw your character. She was strong as a little girl who knew she was going to blow up the world when she grew up. And then the alien queen was maternal and a woman too. It was perfect. And I just wondered, did you all know that while you were making it? I know you saw it afterwards, but did you realize what you had when you were making it?
I would like to say yes, but to be honest with you, I had absolutely no clue. And a lot of it I probably didn't get until I became a mom myself. You know, until I grew up and kind of understood a lot of that aspect of it.
Well, I say thank you too. And I bought one pop and it's a Michael Corleone, so
I gotta say, it wasn't probably until maybe 5 years ago that I realized the girl power of this movie. And I have 2 daughters, and that made me even more proud of this movie, you know. And what I liked about the women in this movie was that, like, and you just reminded me of it, is that very often in our society, when women want to be successful, they take on male traits. And it was so beautiful to see a woman be powerful from female traits, instead of thinking that the only way that you can be successful or powerful is male. And that was a good example of showing that, no, it's different, but it's not less. And to embrace that to embrace that motherhood in her, and watch how it made her this tigeress, you know, was a beautiful thing. And I don't know how James, whether he consciously did this, but there are too many examples of it in his film where all the women, I mean, in this film particularly I'm talking about, where all the women are just such strong characters in their own way, in their own right. And you're right, even from the little girl to the queen alien, they were all females. Those are the ones that were just like kick-ass. It didn't take anything away from the guys. The guys were kick-ass in their own way. And it just shows you that, you know, people are people, and this whole idea that women can't be in the military or stuff like that, it just shows how ridiculous it is. And I like the fact that even Jeanette's character, maybe some women maybe don't want to be feminine, but you can be yourself. Just be yourself and be your best self, whoever that self is. And that film was just a great example of that.
I think this little gentleman had a question.
We talk so much, we've answered all their questions.
I had a question for Cynthia, actually. So in the movie Aliens, your character kind of gets taken off screen, and we're told that they still see life signs and such, but they're very low. I was just curious what your thoughts on how your character kind of met her end were. Were you, chest burster or just KO? Just
No, the implication, I think that it was alluded to when they said, no, you can't, like I think Sigourney said, no, you can't save her now, she's being cocooned like those others. So I would have had the face hug her, implant the embryo, and it would have been gestating in my chest as well. And I would have been alive until the planet was nuked.
Excellent, cool.
In fact, I often correct people because they say, oh, you were the first one killed in Aliens, and I say, oh no, I wasn't. I was just taken away.
I read that in the original script you were the first one killed, and then they changed it, and you actually made it further than most of the other people.
Right.
Yeah, so, thank you.
I just had a quick question for Carrie. Do you think that for Aliens 3, they should have stuck to more of the comic book storyline? Because Newt and Hicks are alive, and they're like totally badass. Instead, you guys got killed off.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't really think about it. It is what it is. It's life, and in movies, these things happen very quickly. You can get killed off quickly. And then you can get brought back too. You never know. I don't know. James Cameron had an idea of what he thought would be the ideal Alien 3, and it was and there's a lot of shots that he purposely put in of Hicks, Ripley, and Newt, kind of this family, and I think that was the move he was going with. And initially, I think that was what Sigourney was hoping they would go with, but he didn't write a script, or he didn't. It wasn't picked. I don't know. But they had a bunch of scripts to go through and to decide which one it was, and that was what they picked. It's life. I'm Newt, so I still have this. It is what it is.